Hello and grand day, everyone, and welcome to our very special convening of Black journalists in our region. Through our eyes, I should say, is our opportunity to hear the voice of our area documenters, reporters, editors, and our frontline folks that are making the news happen while they're living it. I am Jade Harrell. I am the Director of On-Demand Content and Community Partnerships with St. Louis Public Radio, and I'm the Executive Director of the We Live Here program. It is the We Live Here show that is presenting this from the inspiration of Ms. Lauren Brown, who is our We Live Here host and producer. So we welcome all of you here and just ask that engage in conversation. While we're not on Twitch any longer, use the hashtag so we can find and connect and follow this conversation. We Live Here, Black journalists. I am so happy to bring our panelists together. And so I'll do a brief round robin and have each of you share your name, what you do, and the platform you're on. I'll start with you, Ms. Lauren, as you are our grand host and have really made this event and opportunity possible.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lauren Brown, the host and producer of the We Live Here podcast based out of St. Louis Public Radio and PRX.
Fantastic, and that's a radio platform. Ms. Gabrielle Hayes.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle Hayes. I'm a communities correspondent for the PBS NewsHour out of St. Louis, and my platform is digital and on air.
Excellent. Andrea Henderson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Henderson. I'm the race, culture, and identity reporter at St. Louis Public Radio.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Mr. Malik Wilson.
What's going on, everyone? I'm Malik Wilson. I am the reporter of Show Me St. Louis with KSDK Channel 5 here in St. Louis.
Okay, for those who are not in St. Louis, that is that's television and one of our local news stations. And it is Mr. Cam Rose that I'd like to have introduce himself next.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Cam, formerly of Real STL News, one of the original co-founders. I stepped away. Now I'm doing VOP News, so that's my platform that I'll be on right now going forward. So y'all can check me out there.
Fantastic. And Mr. Sylvester Brown, what an honor to have you with us today.
It's just all mine. Sylvester Brown, longtime journalist, former columnist, former newspaper owner, author, and I'm now the Deaconess Fellow with the St. Louis American newspaper, and my beat is COVID's impact on the Black community.
Powerful conversation. Well, that leads us to, and I don't want to waste any time because we wanted to hear from you originally. How are you all given or take on assignments? And we'll just go back around the circle. Sylvester.
Well, I'm pretty blessed. My assignment, the only requirement that they requested was I do narrative stories. I don't just tell the news. I try to tell stories about people's lives and just tell stories. So I just keep an eye on the news. I keep an eye on the obits. I keep an eye on Facebook, and I try to tell those stories from a real perspective. How did that impact their lives? Their attitudes, personalities. And I also try to keep everybody informed on the mask mandates and the vaccinations and try to dispel all the myths that are related to why we refuse to get vaccinated. And I don't mean all of us, but a significant number of us. So yeah, it is a wonderful gig for me because as I mentioned, I'm an author. So telling these real life stories to me is like, fodder for future novels. So I'll just stop there.
All right. And I love to hear and see how enthusiastic you are about it. And we'll circle back around to talk about why that lights you up so much, considering your vast experience. All right. Miss Gabrielle, our guest. How do you take on assignments and move forward with the stories that you share?
Yeah, so since I work for the NewsHour, we're a national outlet, but the Communities Initiative is new, and its goal is to make sure that communities of color across the country get a voice on the national stage. And so my job is to make sure that St. Louisans get a spot on that stage or a seat at the table, but more specifically, Black and Brown people. So I've been here with the NewsHour for about 2 months, and trying to make sure stories of not only people in St. Louis, but across Missouri get to the rest of the country. So that's kind of what I've been working on so far. And that's anything from racist incidents in high schools and holding school districts accountable to documenting how cities are apologizing for using racist policy to drive Black and Brown people out of their own neighborhoods. So that's what I've been working on so far.
This is going to get good. Malik, how do you take on the topics and focuses that you cover?
Well, being with Show Me St. Louis, and kind of like you mentioned, it's a lifestyle morning show here in St. Louis. But for me, it's more so positive news. It's not really, hitting on the COVID and things of that nature. It's more so like positive things to get people kind of away from the harsh realities of life. And so basically what we do on the show is, highlight businesses, food, events. And with me being on this platform, I like to get people of color on there, with new business, even if they've been in business for 20 years, like I even pitch to them like, yo, give me something new, some new flavor so that I can pitch you to my producers and stuff so we can get you on the show. And so that's pretty much where my outlet is showing positive news. I've been in the hard news world, dealing with COVID and, politics and all that stuff. And, it's hardcore out there, but I love to share positive news. So that's kind of where I go about with my platform.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Mr. Cam.
Well, with my platform, I don't have a place that we actually get news from. Like, I don't have any superiors, anything like that. I don't have to run anything past anybody. I do what I feel like is needed, or we do what we feel like is needed out in the community. Just like she stated, I'm sorry, Miss Gabrielle, she stated like, she likes to deal with people, issues of color and things of that nature. I be direct with it. Like, we deal with a lot of Black issues first and foremost, not excluding anything else, but it was a void that we felt like was there. So we took on that void, and that's pretty much what we do. If I had to get assignments from anybody, I say directly from the community. That's pretty much like what we hear about everything at. Community is what made my former situation as big as it is. And I know it's gonna do the same thing for my current situation as well. So straight from the community.
Looking forward to that. I'll be asking you more about Voice of the People as well, or People's Voice, is it? We'll get there. I'm going to come back. Let's go with Andrea, back in-house. How are you chosen? How are your assignments chosen and the ones that you pursue?
Well, I like to talk on the phone a lot. So I normally get a lot of information from some of my friends or from just sources or people that I speak to in the community. And they'll come up to me, or my friends are coming to me and say, hey, did you see this on the news? Or, what do you think about this? And I always think, oh my gosh, this is also happening in St. Louis. Like, this could be something that I can talk about, especially. And then I also look for stories that pull at my heartstrings, which is like, for me, the reason why I took on so many or basically the eviction beat was because it affected Black women the most. And I was just like, I could possibly be evicted. This would possibly affect me or my friends or my people in my family. So I wanted to put those kind of stories out there. Obviously, I cover, things that have to do with race, identity, and culture. but I always will have a lens for, my work does always have a lens. I speak with that lens as well. I write with that lens as well.
Ms. Lauren.
Yes, so the We Live Here podcast, it kind of came out of the Ferguson uprising. So it's been around for a while. It's gone through a different host, but I think that from my perspective, being a transplant to St. Louis, I've always found it important to be in the community and listen to the community, figure out what they want, what are they thinking about, what are they trying to change. And a lot of the things that we cover, like environmental racism, we had a season on that. So we kind of think of a big topic and use it as a season, and then think of those topics in that evolve around that. So with environmental racism, we think of reproductive justice, demolitions and how that's affecting people, asthma rates, and things like that. So we kind of make sure that we uncover these issues that have to deal with race and class in St. Louis. And I think that has been really important for me, especially during COVID, dealing with death in my family with COVID. I understood how important it was to tell the stories of our people and how we're experiencing it and how hard it is to get COVID tests, to get the vaccine, especially when testing sites were just starting up, but how people weren't able to get to them because of transportation and things like that. So the podcast is really about that. And my main focus is figuring out what the community wants to know, what the community is trying to achieve, and how we can help support that.
As the community-facing representatives of your organizations, I hear you all sounding and sharing about your deliberate approach to bring more stories about people of color and community. Is that something that, let's talk about that void. Is it something that you're needing to drive? And why is that void there in such a way that you are uniquely qualified to fill it? You have to pitch, you have to ask. In some cases, for those of you that have to pitch, tell me about that void and why you're very specific and strategic about it. And any of you who have assignments given can share.
I think that, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
Okay. I think that for me, because the podcast is based in, that type of work, that, I have the opportunity to do that, but also the podcast started because there was a gap in coverage in the newsroom. They felt like those stories weren't being told. And, past hosts may not have been always women of color or people of color. And to have that position and to be in this community, and to know that when I say We Live Here podcast, it means something to people. And so I feel like I carry that with me, and I try to always make sure that, that I'm open to that I'm making sure that my stories are something that they can be proud of. And I think that it's been exciting to see that we're getting more opportunities, but the opportunity should have already been there. I think that a lot of, white journalists kind of parachute into the community when things happen and then they leave. But to be able to go into the community and they feel like they can trust you, they feel like they can be vulnerable and authentic is something that I really value. And just to have the opportunity to speak to people that look like me, that are dealing with things that I know my family deals with, and, not having to code switch all the time. Like, I feel like we have an understanding, not to say that just because I'm Black, I understand all Black communities, but it's just a certain commonality that we all have. And I think that that's really important. So I hope that we continue to get more opportunities for sure.
Mm-hmm. How about that for you, Malik?
So before I moved here to St. Louis, I was living in North Dakota, working as a news reporter there. Culture shock. But I feel like I had a white news director there. I mean, basically everybody there was white. And I felt like they allowed me to embrace the Black community that was there in North Dakota. And I commend my old news director all the time because she was flexible and she was willing to learn, our culture. And so I've heard horror stories of other people being, places like Wyoming and South Dakota, and their higher ups. It was always a question of like, will this be good for our audience, with our audience? Because it's always about the audience. What does our audience care about? And so I commend my Gabrielle I commend my old news director for, allowing me and, other men and women of color at our station to embrace our culture and give people of color a platform.
Mhm. Shouts out to North Dakota for having other Black staff that you could even have that dialogue with.
Mhm.
Gabrielle, you smiled a bit when the audience framework came into play. Tell me a little more about that.
Well, I want to start by saying my job that I'm at now is unique because all of our stories are and our entire lens for the Communities Project is supposed to be about people of color and Black people. So I'm very grateful for the job I have now. But when he said, this hasn't been my only job, I've been in several newsrooms. And when he said it's all about the audience, I've been in newsrooms where I was the only Black journalist on several shifts. And I can't tell you how frustrating it is to have somebody say to you, well, does our audience care?
Right.
Does our audience care? Black people are a part of the audience, you know? So it kind of almost makes me emotional, but we've been in those rooms and those are very difficult spaces to be in, but it was important to be in them and to have a voice because our Black audience deserves to be reflected in the news as well. And so, yeah, you hit a chord.
I mean, I got goosebumps too, because those that are watching probably recognize it in other spaces. And there's a challenge between, is it the cart before the horse? Is this our audience? Well, if our audience doesn't have a value for it, then what's missing? Is it what we're covering, or is it the audience that we share and have invited? Sylvester, you chimed in with an amen. To be or not to be is the question. To be the guy that does all the Black stories, or not to be the guy that does the Black stories. Or if I want to do stories about Black people, I can if I want to. Or don't ask me to do the Black stories because I don't speak for everybody. Talk about that dilemma in the middle.
Yeah.
Sylvester.
Well, I find with the Black newspaper, it's cool, do what you're supposed to do with the Black newspaper. But when I worked with the Post-Dispatch, it's very, very challenging because the editors, your bosses, they are like everybody else. They have no Black friends. They have no relation with the Black community. So they put a value on it. My mantra view has always been, my job is to bust up stereotypes, to show you that Black folks are just as humane and just as multifaceted as everybody else. So what I find is that, especially within the white press, is a lack of humanity towards Blacks. And I'll give you a quick example of this. In 2006, there was a young man who shot a police officer point blank. They wrote the story about him killing the police officer. At the very bottom, they wrote, his brother had a heart attack his younger brother had a heart attack the same day. So I called the reporter and asked her, are these related? And she said, no, it's not related. The police said it's not related. I visited the community, met with the neighbors. And the first thing they said was, the police killed that boy. So I found out that this guy shot the police officer because he believed that they let his younger brother die. They didn't call the police. They searched the house first. So I was able to, I'm not bragging about this, but I was able to show that there was a whole different story to this routine story they did about a kid shooting a cop. His brother had died. He blamed the police officers. He went after the cop. It was just a matter of being human. I asked myself, if my brother died, would my first reaction be to go kill a cop? It made no sense to me. So once I went to the neighborhood, talked to the people and the family, I found out there's a whole nother story that my editors and the reporter left out because they didn't bother to humanize the killer.
Thank you, Sylvester.
That's just one example.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
but it is our responsibility as Black journalists to push back on that. To make sure that our editors and our bosses understand that it is all of our jobs to tell stories about people beyond color.
Yeah.
I'll get off my soapbox now.
No. I invited you here to bring the box with you. When you talk about our job and our responsibility. That's where we start hearing more about the fatigue and exhaustion of carrying that as the person who has to convince their supervisors or decision makers to let it go, but also to try to change, reshape, and present a completely different narrative in a space that's unfamiliar. Andrea, talk about that exhaustion, the strain, and Lauren, I'd love for you to follow from her. And then I'll come with something for you, Cam, specifically for your situation. Andrea, the exhaustion.
I think earlier, before the pandemic, like I started here in St. Louis 2019, I think, beginning of 2019. And I remember like toward the spring, it was just like a lot of gun violence. And I think it was like that May, like Memorial Day weekend, like things just like spiked here in St. Louis. And so the editors were just like, oh, we need to talk about this gun violence, gun violence, gun violence. And of course, you know, I was okay with it because that's fine. I can talk about it. I can find different stories to kind of really open up the eyes of what's actually happening. And I think like I was in the community, I was talking to kids, like my particular, like, I guess like beat or stories that I was looking for was like gun violence and kids and how it was affecting them. And I spent some time in North St. Louis and in the Greater Ville area. And to be honest, you know, the children there that I kind of spoke with, they were just so exhausted with it. And I could see it on their face, which kind of made me exhausted as well, like just reporting about it. And after all the stories came out or everything we did around gun violence, I kind of had a little PTSD too, because I was reporting on it and then I had been caught up in some gun violence while I was out there. So it was just like, am I supposed to be doing this? Like, you know, how do I protect myself and how do I keep my mind sane while still trying to report on the actual news? And I think like for me, I had to take a step back, and I know they were asking for more and more stories, do more and more stories about gun violence. And I just kind of was like, I can't do it right now. Like, I need to take a break. Like, let me do some fun stories, or let me talk about some food and Black people. Let me talk about, you know, something else so I can get my mind off of it. And I think it kind of, you know, it came to a point where, yes, I was exhausted, but then I started doing other things which helped me get my mind off of it. But then lo and behold, here comes COVID and we back up in this thing. So I'm just like, and then, you know, here comes the Black Lives Matter protest, and it's just like on and popping from there. So to be honest, now I'm exhausted every day. Like, it takes a lot to get me like going and get my juices flowing and my creative, you know, mind going again. And I don't know how I'm going to get back to like the normal Andrea that I was before, but maybe y'all have some tips, you know. And I always say I'm like the self-care queen, but I may need some more tips for my self-care. But, you know, Lauren, I say that all the time, and I try to help my other friends, my other Black journalists, how to keep their minds sane, you know, doing this type of work. But at times, you know, I'm suffering too. I don't answer your question, but that's just
You really did in a beautiful, beautiful, sincere way. Thank you. Lauren, actually, I want to shift that a little bit.
Okay.
Because it sounds like we got a lot of work now, hey. But in a way that getting some work in now. But Lauren, what I'm hearing among the group is that all of that is still filling in the missing pieces, the missing stories. Got to find the joyful things to talk about. Got to come up with something, because almost, I don't know the statistics and you all could tell me better, if the majority of what we're able to share is of the struggle, what do we need to insert more for the health and growth and betterment of this community we serve.
I think that, especially when I worked with American Public Media on the Black at Mizzou documentary, I found myself having to explain a lot of things. And I think that's where the exhaustion came from, explaining how certain things happened to me and them having shocked looks on their faces, like a mostly white team, and it's just me, and having to explain like this is a common thing that happens. But I think taking the angle of that story to say that, you know, Black Mizzou is a good thing. Black Mizzou is something that we felt that we needed. And it's a place where we felt community. And I think a lot of big news outlets missed that when they told that story, and being able to have, you know, audio from the Black Mizzou homecoming tailgate and have Swag Surf, you know, in the documentary, and have people say like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that, you know, that they were able to tell a story in this way. And I think that, you know, having those moments to say like, yes, these things happen, but in the midst of that, it was so much beauty. It was so many things where people, you know, learn from each other, where people grew. You know, I was a freshman at the time. I didn't know a lot of things. I had never been away from home that far. And just being able to see how people, you know, took a hold of me and, you know, took care of me when I needed it. And I think being able to show those stories is really important, to show that even through all of this adversity and all of these things that we deal with, there's still this community, there's still this love, there's still this, you know, this need to have, you know, authentic Blackness and to be yourself and to be okay with that. And I think that's just a perfect example of how, you know, you can take such a traumatic event or traumatic story and make it, you know, powerful and beautiful and touching.
For sure.
Yeah.
So Cam, this is where it starts to fold into your innovative and new spaces. Real STL News did something that I hadn't seen before. And this will prompt the follow-up questions with those that are connected to an organization or underemployed. We mentioned earlier, people say, did you see the news? Did you see the news? And that's usually what we turn to find out what's going on and connect with the pulse. In 2014 with Michael Brown, it was not the news that supplied the mainstream news, the big news that we're referring to, whether it be radio or television, was not able to supply the right then, right there community connection of what was happening. And I found I was searching on the mainstream news, national and local, and never found what was so real and riveting as what I found with Real STL News, especially at that time. I wanted to know. I couldn't get out there, but I wanted to know, and you all took us there. Talk about that exhaustion, if it is, or your approach for sure, what space that was able to provide for community in some of our most traumatic and trying times, from right from the scene to people's phones and devices.
Okay, all right, so for starters, let me add a correction. Like, we established Real STL News spring of 2017. So we weren't even a team at that point in time.
I meant on the ground folks though, like
right.
that. Yes, thank you. Good clarity, thank you.
All right, but we did originate from 2014, from Ferguson. I'm gonna be honest, a lot of social media was the reason why, you know, the Mike Brown, in our opinion, was as big as it was. Like, directly when it happened, when everything first happened, people took to their Twitter pages, their Facebook pages, mainly Twitter and Facebook, and they got the information directly out to the masses. I had people in different cities, different states saying, man, what's going on back home? I just seen the police just kill somebody. And like, that was like one of the biggest things. Social media at the time was able to get that message to everybody. So as far as like being like boots on the ground at the time, we felt like we had to do it. We felt like it was necessary because without regular human beings, without regular civilians, without people doing the tweets, without the Facebook posts, without the pictures, without the videos, You had mainstream media coming into town or, pulling up, just like they do oftentimes. Get the story wrong like they do oftentimes. And I forgot who it was that said it, but sometimes they don't have like a genuine connect to the actual community, to the actual people. So when you see a person that you feel like doesn't really represent you or really doesn't really care, just here for a quote unquote hot story, for the most part, average community gonna be standoffish. Whether it's a police officer, whether it's a reporter, no matter who it is. If a person don't know you, we don't know you. Like you come around when it's tragedy, but where are you at? Like when stuff going cool or good, we don't see you then. But if somebody's laying around, you pulling up. So with some of this exhaustion, if I may, like just people coming from, I don't want to use the word outsiders or outside areas, but when you come to a specific area or region, just to get what you need and leave, that's exhausting on a day-to-day basis. I see it all the time when I'm out there. So I don't know. I would say that's one of the most exhausting things for us as people that try to like get the news out to people, the information out to people. When you see people come, get what they need, pretty much rob, I just say rob the resources of the news, of the information, and don't come back no other time. So that's one of the most exhausting things for me.
That's powerful. So for everyone, give me a word that would describe your pandemic year in the work that you're doing, whether it be a color, an animal, a feeling, an expression. What word comes to mind first when you think about what just happened in the work you do, especially with the onset of COVID? We'll go in alphabetical order. Andrea.
Man, I'm trying to think of a word.
Okay, Cam.
I was actually,
Welcome back. You got one for me?
I was actually trying to think of an animal since you said I could think of
Yeah, because I want that pure first feeling.
I mean, because at first I was thinking tired, but then I said an animal is like I'm a lion roaring every day because I'm just always like, it's just so much happening. That's how I feel sometimes.
I love that. Thank you. Okay, make sure I got my alphabet right. Cam.
One word. I'll just have to say word. Everything got real weird in the pandemic. Restaurants closed too early. You can't walk in here. You can't go in here. Like everything's just weird. People driving down the street in the car by themselves wearing masks. They definitely 6 feet, 6 feet away from everybody else. But you pull up at the red light, look to the left, see them by themselves in the car with their mask on, their gloves. It just got real weird. That's the best I can say.
I love it. Gabrielle.
I think the word that comes to my mind is just like test, because I feel like we've been pushed to our limits in so many different ways, whether it's at work or in our lives or even mental health, right? Like we've had to have that conversation during the pandemic. So that's what comes to my mind, just trying to overcome one test at a time.
Very nice. Okay. Lauren.
I think my word would be realization, especially because I realized that I had to take like mental health breaks, or that I needed them, or just to have a moment, whether it's 5-10 minutes, that, these stories are important, but also if I'm not here or, able to tell them, then how would they get told? So I think just realizing that everybody needs a moment to breathe and to take a pause, and that, burnout is real and you have to pay attention to the signs.
All right now, Harriet Tubman. Gotta go back and get them. All right, Malik.
Oh man, my word would be growth. I think throughout the whole pandemic, I feel like God sat us all down somewhere and allowed us to sit in peace, sit in quiet, and, alone. It was a lonely time, but it was a chance for us to grow, take down notes, think about plans that you had, in the next year, 3 years, 5 years, and kind of, figure out a way to execute it. And so that would be my word, is growth.
I love it. Thank you, Malik. Sylvester?
My word would be empowering. And I say that because when I look at African Americans in the annals of time, through slavery, through Reconstruction, through Jim Crow era, to even now, we've always managed to overcome obstacles. We've always managed to rise when everybody wanted us and expected us to fall. With COVID, I see that same level of survival, resiliency, creativity, and actually still find a way to kick it. So to me, it's just when I tell these stories about how people are grappling with COVID, I'm always reminded of our collective spirituality, our belief system, our reliance on community, and just who the hell we are. We are an amazing people, and we deal with stuff in an amazing way. So empowerment is my word.
That's a beautiful word, and the way you shared brought something to mind, especially in your work. In what you all do, you're constantly addressing the statistics. We're number one in this, we're number one in that, we're number one in the other, disproportionately affected, happens to Black and brown people more, you all are predisposed, it's in your DNA. Oh my God, why am I even here? Who chose? For you all in identity, do you lean into it as you work? Do you have to disconnect from it in order to work? What does it take for you to show up and create the space that's for you in this work? And I'll give you some context for it, is that I'm sure we were all told what our values or presentation should be. If you're gonna be a good journalist, if you're gonna be a good Black journalist, if you're gonna keep a job, keep a good job, all of that stuff is a consideration. So showing up, and if you were to say, I am in that identity, I'd love to know and get a sense of showing up in your identity. Do you have to leave it at home? Do you bring it with you? Do you wear it? I know we mentioned code switch, it's kind of along those lines, but how would you best powerfully or have struggled with your identity in this work? All right, now I'm gonna just go to Gabrielle.
I knew it. I knew you were gonna pick me.
I went by color this time. I was like, oh, she's got red.
I don't separate my identity from my work. I think we've had to have a lot of conversations about that, especially when they like to, talk about the word like objectivity, right? Or like being unbiased and those conversations. But I'm a Black woman first, so not that I make my stories about me, but I think that it's important to tell the stories I tell through the lens of a Black woman, I'm also born and raised on the north side of St. Louis, and that matters. That's where I'm from. And I'm not going to change that no matter what room I'm in, because I think that not only do our stories deserve to be told, but we got to show up, as Cam said, not just when there is a crisis or a crime, we got to be there all the time. And so my identity is what makes me the journalist that I am.
You're right where I was hoping to go. Thank you, Gabrielle. Lauren, I'm gonna go back to you.
Yes, I think I've grown into it actually. I think especially in college and going through like that process and learning that it's not too many of us in here, and just learning that it's okay for me to speak up when things are wrong, to say that this isn't right, to say that this isn't what you think it is, or you're not explaining it in the right way. And I think I've grown to be this person that I am, and to say that, you know, I'm Black 24/7, like 365 days. And I can't be sorry about that. Like, that's who I am. You know, my grandparents are from Mississippi. They took the time to move to Chicago to even make a better life for me. And to sit there and not be proud of that, or be proud of myself and be proud of my family, is just, you know, it wouldn't make me feel good to, you know, step out into the world and be that way. So I think I've definitely grown and learned that, you know, I have to be me. I have to be Lauren no matter what. And that, you know, I can't let them down. I don't want them to see me doing things like that, or feeling like I can't, you know, tell our stories our way and from our lens. So I think it's definitely important for me to be me and to be Black all the time.
It ain't like you could just unzip it. Very nice. Malik.
Like Lauren and Gabrielle said, you know, it's you know, being 100% Black. You know, being it's not always comfortable being Black, but I feel like we have an obligation with the platforms that we have to embrace being Black, show that being Black is cool, show that, you know, we can do something just because we're Black, you know. And so I think that also goes back to being a TV personality or radio personality, social media, any type of personality. Say that 3 times, goodness gracious. But you know, any type of personality, you are supposed to be yourself. And they always go back to the audience, but the audience can either gravitate towards you or not. But it's all about being 100% within yourself as a personality. And I think that's what makes us all in here so special, because people see us and they're like, I like what they're doing. And they're positive in what they're doing. So, so yeah, you know, just TV personality, radio personality in general, just be yourself.
I'm going to tweak that question a little bit and stick Sylvester in the middle, because there's also a dynamic here of generations that you all are, yeah, where are your Blackness? We just did an episode about the Crown Act. There were no braids in the boardroom in our day. Right. And I say our, because I'm up in the half hundreds with the rest of them. But for that confidence, one, to know who you are in the sense of things, right on to that. But then to be able to stand in it confidently, comfortably, safely, unscathed. For a minute there, I was like, wow, we have reached the promised land. Sylvester, put in perspective the contrast.
Well,
of being how you could show up, and probably because they continued to show up is why these contributors are able to say and speak in the way that they are. But take us back a bit for those who don't understand the journey, and then a reminder for us, because the 2 people I speak to after this, I want to change that question on who you are to who you are in light of the shoulders you're standing on. But Sylvester, you're in that centerpiece.
Okay, well, since I'm the Morgan Freeman of the group.
You're not. And that's not a derogatory.
When I was a boy, I had no shoes. What happened was, I'm trying to go back to identity, because I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. So I knew absolutely nothing about my Blackness, my history. So once I discovered that at the age of 22, maybe through books, I was on fire. You could not tell me anything bad about Black people, because I was so in love with our story. So that's been my guide. That's why I like Cam's Real St. Louis News, because he didn't wait for permission. He didn't wait for a license. He didn't wait for anybody to validate his dream. He went out and did it. And that's what I did in 1987. I started my own magazine and just did it. It was hell, but we just did it. So I might be varying from your question, Jade. I was struck by something that Andrea said, and it was about,
please.
It was about being burnt out and overwhelmed by the negativity of it all. for me, the panacea, the medicine has always been to look at what Black folks are doing positively. With all the gang violence, there's a Black mother, a Black father, a Black organization, a Black minister, a Black activist who's working with kids, showing them a different way. The same with COVID. There's somebody advocating for the evicted. There's somebody advocating for those who are not getting proper medicine. So I find that flipping that script from the negative to those who are doing something about it is not only empowering, it's informative, and it shows it gives you a different lens to look at the same problems. So whenever you get down, try to find a solution, or somebody's working on a solution for that problem. Jay, did I come anywhere close to answering your question?
Absolutely. You're right in the space that I needed, because
Okay, well, but the challenge is for us,
yeah,
is to always push back. Have to realize that the audience is hesitant to see us as human. The audience is hesitant to go beyond the stereotypes, and they will talk about, the high rate of crime and the high rate of this and the high rate of treatable diseases. I always say we are exactly where we're supposed to be. If you consider the stuff we have gone through, the attempts to marginalize, to ostracize, to destroy us, we are still where we need to be. A lot of work to be done. But I'm surprised that there aren't more kids involved with violence and drugs. I'm surprised that there are not more of us who are strung out, not more of us who aren't, considering what we have been through. And I always preach that. We are a magnificent people. If we focus on, you will not define me by the least common denominator. You're not going to define me by the 2% who are committing crimes. Define me by the 99% who are out there working against the odds to raise their kids, to make $1, to bring some kind of hope and happiness to their lives. That's who's going to define me. I'm going to help you define us that way.
fantastic. Lauren and Malik on this one, and then Cam and Andrea for the next one. Well, you already answered. I'm sorry, Malik. I got my squares mixed up. Andrea and Lauren, on whom you answered to?
No. Go ahead. Answer your question.
What you say, baby? I don't know what you just said. It's all I just.
Dude, you're killing me, boy.
On whose shoulders do you stand to have this identity that you're confident and comfortable in? Andrea.
I want to jump to what Sylvester just said. It made me think about, how you were saying that I said that, I was tired, exhausted from all the gun violence. Yeah, I was, or from the stories that I was telling at that period of time. But it made me think back to what I did do afterwards. Like once I got myself back together, I started to find, like you said, those stories that people were actually, or those things that people were actually doing in the community to bring that community up. Like I started focusing more on like mental health stories and people who were actually in the community doing something for people of North St. Louis or Black people in general, like yoga groups or, whatever the case may be. I started to find those stories because I needed it myself.
Right.
So I was just like, these are the type of stories I need to read, so let me write about it. But I did do that. Now that I think about it, it helped me kind of move on and get to a better place so that I can continue to write about those stories and bring out the things that Black people needed to read or listen to during that period of time. Now, when it comes to the shoulders that I stand on, I always go back to the first person who brought me into news, really, because at first, when I first was thinking about being a journalist, I didn't really have anybody that like was just saying, Andrea, do it. Like my parents always just like, journalists don't make no money, Andrea. You need to do something better with your life. Be a doctor, a lawyer, you're smart. But I just kept saying, like, this is what I know how to do. This is the only thing that I know how to do. I only know how to write. I only know how to tell stories. I don't know how to do anything else. And my first job, it was an internship. I was in Dallas. I worked for the Dallas Weekly. African-American newspaper there at the time. I think it's still the Dallas Weekend, maybe something else. But this woman named Cheryl Smith, she actually, she was the editor-in-chief at the time, and she actually, you know, kind of taught me the ropes and showed me things and showed me how to be a Black journalist, because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just writing. I was working for my student newspaper at the time and writing just random stories that they asked me to write at the school newspaper. But once I got into that building and she showed me like, no, focus on these type of stories. These are the Black people that you want to talk about. These are the things that's happening in the community. And I brought that back with me to school. I noticed that we didn't have anything Black happening. I mean, we did, but nobody was talking about it. And how about we talk about it? So I stand on her shoulders, and I also stand on, you know, other Black journalists' shoulders. You know, I stand on you all's shoulders. You don't have to be old for me to stand on your shoulders. You know, if you there to help me, you know, and push me through, you know, I feel like we all are pushing each other up, you know, especially now. I feel like those are the ones that I would say, you know, you are other Black journalists, my friends that I have in, you know, in journalism in general. You know, I think we all need each other. So that's my answer to that.
Very nice. Lauren?
Okay, so I have a different answer for this question, because I think when I was trying to figure out like if this was for me, and, you know, reaching out to people that I may follow or people that are in the business that, you know, just for advice or just, you know, a phone call, email, things like that, it seemed like they didn't want to help me. It seemed like I got a lot of, you know, I'm focusing on this and I don't have time to support or to help. And I think that's why it's been important for me to make sure that when a young journalist asks me a question, that I'm always open, that I'm a listening ear, that I can give out my number, my email. You want to talk, you have questions, you know, I'm here for you, because I felt like it wasn't a place for me, because it wasn't anybody to say like, I'll help you, I'll support you, I'll give you some advice, I'll give you things that you need. And so I think it's always been important for me to do that for somebody coming behind me, because I felt like I didn't have it. But just being able to see people like Kathy Hughes, a Black woman who was able to build something from the ground up and own it, and to have all of these platforms, whether it was radio, TV, digital, all of these things, and to just be a Black woman that looks like somebody that I know, that looks like my grandmother, that looks like my aunt, that looks like, you know, my mom, and being able to see myself in that person, I gravitated towards that. And I felt like, you know, someone who made these opportunities for someone else, that's what I want to make sure that I can do in the future. And that's something that I carry with me every day. But I definitely feel like I stand on the shoulders of, you know, older individuals in my family, my grandparents, my parents, who, you know, risked a lot for me to be here, for me to be able to even get a degree in journalism, for me to be able to go to school. I feel like I'm doing this for them because I feel like they didn't have the opportunity. And I feel like I definitely have to make, you know, make sure that I do it to its fullest capacity.
Awesome. Cam, you're working on something new called Voice of the People. Voice of the People is speaking to this conversation about our audience. Do we influence our audience, or are we influenced and led by our audience? And with your platform being very boots on the ground and directly connected with little filter between the two spaces, how does that work? And will this change the way we do news going forward?
Let's start with, let's change the way we do news going forward. I truly believe anything I'm a part of is definitely going to change the way news is written, stories are told, and all that. I say that because when we did start Real STL News, I mean, you can look out there and see, you can see everybody pretty much jocking the lingo. No matter if it's, you know, ghetto, hood, whatever they want to call it, we pretty much, I put together a solid team. I put together a team that, you know, gave mainstream a run for their money. We beat them to, and it wasn't a race, but we were at the scenes before them because we were from the neighborhoods, from the communities. By the time they got there, by the time they chopped the footage up, put it out, it's hours old. So they changed the way that they, came out with their cameras. You start seeing more of them with iPhones or, different type of methods of capturing audio, different type of methods of capturing video. They didn't want to give us, the respect at first. We didn't care about it either. One thing about me, and even though I'm not with the team anymore, going mainstream was never our goal. Being journalist, honestly, was never our goal. I probably can't even write as well as many people on this, what's this Brady Bunch thing right here, these squares right here. But the fact of the matter is, yeah, it will change the way it's done. I mean, we're faster at the way that, we do it. I have the ability to edit live. A lot of people can't do that, but, I can edit while I'm live. So, it'll be a catch-up game for them if I was going for like competition. I don't care about competition. It's more so getting the stories out, getting the community heard, getting that mother voice to be heard when she's about to get evicted, getting those stories that this ain't no sneak this or nothing that y'all might present to y'all editors and be like, nah, let's go with something else. That was really one of the reasons why we, started it, because like we couldn't get Fox 2 to come out when we needed them, when we actually needed them to come to the hood, or other news outlets. So to answer your question, yeah, it definitely changed the way the news is done. I mean, it's nothing wrong with it though. Like some call evolution. So during evolution, you have to evolve. So you have to use different devices or methods to get your point across and to communicate with the masses. Second part of your question, when you said something in regards to, do you get the news from the community, or they or do they get it from you, or something like that?
Does community inform or influence the way you work, or are we defining and presenting the story? And I say that because if we're the reason why we even had to have a panel like this or chose, and the people that are joining us to watch when they watch it, it wasn't present before. So whether we go mainstream, off script, grassroots, or even guerrilla, as you coined for yourself, is it these parts that are guiding community and letting, hey, here's what you need to know and think, or does it need
I think it's going to
be?
I think it's going to be 50-50. For example, let's go to the political realm real quick. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, what I found out during interviewing a lot of people or having conversations with a lot of people, a lot of Black people or politically uneducated on a lot of matters. And I'll give you an example. A lot of times when you go vote, you might see your signs to say vote Tashara Jones or vote this person. And once you go to that voting poll, you circle on your candidate. And then after that, it's still like 6-7 people to vote for. And you like, who are these people? Who are these judges? Who I ain't seen no yard signs for them. So a lot of times people just, circle the name this, it sounds like this person might, be able to take care of my needs. So I say that to say, in journalism, I feel like, it's a responsibility there. So I think you do have to influence a few people. And when I say by influence, you need to let people know, yo, these are the candidates. This is on here. This is what this person represents. This is the needs that, what are your needs? Okay, so they're matching your needs, or they matching your needs. And like I say, that's just like one example. So I feel like, news should be informative and should influence to an extent, and vice versa. I mean, you have to get stories from the community, else there's really no point in doing it, in my opinion. I don't know what you will be doing it for. I mean, like I say, that's the reason why we done it, or the reason why I do it. Like, I could care less about, any type of, daytime awards, or I don't even know what you guys get and all that type of stuff. Like,
it's called an Emmy.
Emmy, all right.
And a Moro. And
hey, well,
there's tons of them, but there's also that conversation about, if I'm doing all this, where am I seeking the accolades and value and the reward? Where is my worth?
Okay, so for starters, I wish all of you many Emmys and all that type of good stuff. I personally could care less about it. Where is my reward? My reward is knowing that potentially I can do something. As Gabrielle says, she's from North St. Louis. I'm from North St. Louis as well, right by the water tower. I grew up seeing most of my homeboys getting shot, killed, like right in front of my eyes. We grew up with, schools that lost accreditations like Beaumont. We grew up with like a lot of problems in the direct inner city or urban communities. I'm not gonna like get on the soapbox or need nobody play a violin. It's throughout America, like the urban communities. But I feel like, we come into play, or I come into play. Like Sylvester said, I'm not going the route where I have to get anything approved. I'm not going the route that, I have to be filtered. I need to tell whatever story I need to tell, or go in whatever direction I need to go in, because like my reward is being able to, get help to the hood, get help to the urban communities, get help to the ghetto, the trenches, whatever people want to call it. My reward is, being able to inform. My reward is being able to like uplift the small businesses, things like that. So my reward is like rewarding the people. Give them the voice that they need to be heard.
I love that. So that brings me to this last round of questions, and gave it to y'all good. You didn't think it's going to come to work after work. This is more go big or go home. Go big or go home is the question, and it's a choice. We want stories to be told. We want understanding to happen. We want the stereotypes to be broken. We want to change and shift paradigms. Do we need to do that bigger? More resources to Cam and Gabrielle and Lauren? Or do we need to go home where we tune in, laser focused on community? Go big or go home? Any of you can take that on.
Well, I don't know if it's a matter of going big or going home. I think it's a matter of being committed, having a personal commitment to being the best storyteller that you can possibly be. And I say that when I worked at the Post-Dispatch, a lot of hate mail, death threats, et cetera, et cetera. But the biggest compliment was when people who didn't agree with me wrote to me and said, I don't agree with you. I don't even like you, but you made me think. So if somebody tells me I made them think, then my job is done. So today with the Post-Dispatch, and I realize that I'm in a unique position. So today with the St. Louis American, when somebody calls me and say, the story you told about the jeweler who wasn't vaccinated and died, and his wife was saying she's still not going to get vaccinated, you made me see her position, which is bizarre. But just by again being human, and there's been countless stories that I've been able to tell in this whole pandemic. But my only goal is to tell a good story and have people read it, and that is something that crosses age, gender, and race. Be a damn good storyteller, and only focus on making people read and appreciate or watch or view what you do.
Somebody, I know, right?
Oh, please.
I would like another one of you to take on that question. Who would like to put some love on that? Going big or go home. The resources in the spaces, the audiences, the number, the reach, supposedly, the toys in some spaces to tell the stories.
I mean, I wonder about Malik, not to dominate here, but I wonder about
Dominate, man.
I wonder about Malik. How free is he to tell Black stories? I mean, is there a quota? If you do 2 Black stories in a row, will somebody come out?
Gone too far.
Yeah, you've done 2 stories on Black folks, now it's time for you to move on to the larger audience, dude. So I wonder about those of us who work in the sphere of white-owned media, and how limited that is, and how frustrating and challenging that may be.
I mean, with the show that I'm with, and that's a great question, actually. with the show that I'm with, Show Me St. Louis here in St. Louis, I feel like I mentioned, my North Dakota news director, she allowed me to, be the voice for the Black people, whenever I saw fit. And I feel the same here with Show Me St. Louis, with my producers, with, our host, Dana. They allow me to, I love this job so much because they allow me to do really what I want to do. And that's why I say, when I see positive Black, our show is very positive, but like when I see positive Black people doing things, I'm new here, so everything is new to me. So if it's been a business in business for 20 years, I tell them, I'm like, in order for me to, because I want to get you on the show and I know you want to get on the show, give me something, even if it's an inch of something new. Say you got some new forks. Let me know so that I can put you on there and we can talk about these forks for just an inch of a second, but the majority of the story will be about your business. And so I love my coworkers because they allow me to be myself. They allow me to tell the stories of people who I want to tell the stories of. And I know in hard news, that's because I've came from that. It's much harder when you're doing like more stricter news. And so being in lifestyle has allowed me to just be myself and really just do what I want to do with the platform I'm given.
That's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be respectful of time because I know you all made time to be here. And I just have one final question in two parts. Especially because I'm thinking of Malik and Gabrielle, and there's situations where they're able to open up some more with the support of their organizations. Cam and Sylvester, they're free to get down, however, and Lauren and Andrea have a real key stake in the stories that they cover and the way that they're able to do them. The question is, what is your headline for your hope? What headline that you would create corresponds with the hope you have for where we should be? Meaning, if it's a larger audience, who should be in the newsrooms and in what roles? But if you all would just kind of bring us around home, because I also wonder if what's transpired over this past couple of years and what you've been through will have long-reaching effect on how you tell stories in the future and which way you'll go. So what is your headline for hope? We'll go back in order again. Oh yeah, go ahead, Malik, you got it.
Oh no, sorry, not to cut you off, but it's just like, it's running out my mind right now. But my headline would be innovation, and it would be, of course, you want to see more people of color in newsrooms and production rooms, behind the scenes, on screen, all of that. But we need more people who are willing to be innovative. Like I said, I've heard horror stories of people who have been in, white majority states, white majority cities, and their higher ups don't care to hear about the people of color or the, indigenous people. In North Dakota, it's a lot of indigenous people. And so I was blessed to have a white news director who was innovative and wanted to hear that stuff. She wanted to, even if she didn't know, she grew up in North Dakota. She's seen maybe 10 Black people in her whole life. So it's like, to have people like herself, have people like I have here, with Show Me St. Louis, who are innovators, who are not afraid to learn different cultures and embrace it and allow me to be myself and other people of color to be themselves. So that's my headline, innovation.
I love it. Gabrielle?
I don't know if I have a headline per se, but I do have like something to add. And I think, when I think about the future of journalism and what it should look like, we often talk about having more Black people and people of color in the room, but I think it's not just about having a seat at the table, but having a voice at said table. Because I think oftentimes institutions and organizations will put people in the room and then don't give people a chance. And so I think we have to challenge our organizations to do more. And, you know, one thing that's been said to me at prior jobs was that, like, we're not going to solve these things overnight. But no one's asking you to, is the point, you know, like what people are asking you to do is to show up when it counts, you know? And so that's what I want, and moving forward is the word for me would be accountability. Because, you know, words are one thing, but actions are another.
See, that's the east side. Love it. Cam, what's the broader headline of our future for hope, for what we're doing, our work?
I guess my headline would be tell a story before somebody else tell it for you. That's all I could think of, you know, pretty much by any means necessary. You know, like I say, I'm probably never going to work in a newsroom. I'm probably never going to work in mainstream unless, you know, it's something that I or we or a team that I'm affiliated with created. So, you know, I really don't have that desire like some of the other, you know, panelists might have. I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to tell a story. I'm going to get to the story. I'm going to be the voice for the voiceless, voice for the people who need it. So I say just tell a story by any means.
Now, you know, they said that you got to go get a real job. You can't earn a living doing this here work, telling stories now.
Who said that?
I know it. We're not listening to them.
Who said that? Look, my thing is this. I'm not listening to what nobody say. Once again, I'm be honest. I appreciate being on this panelist. I don't even consider myself what you guys are, like, you know, quote unquote real journalists. Or I don't got no degrees and stuff. I don't even care to have one in it. Now I will say this. That doesn't make me a person that don't study. You know, I do study. I hop on YouTube University and I find some of the best interviewers and all that type of stuff. I see how they're doing it. Shouts out to, you know, Jade. Anytime I have questions, I hit her up. You know, she's willing to, you know, be that resource for me. Miss Robin Boyce, you know, I look at her as one of my mentors. Patricia Washington. Those are just a few people that when I got a question, I call them, they pick up. You know, they pour into me, they so into me. So I don't want to let them down. And I definitely don't want to let like the people down who I feel like I serve. You know what I'm saying? I feel like as a journalist, you have to serve. It can't just be a job. It can't just be a paycheck. Like Andrea said, she said, it's all she know how to do. She said people told her it don't make a lot of money, but you know, she's still here for some reason. So she has to have some type of passion for it, in my opinion. So
That's
I'm
right.
gonna be respectful of time too. So that's all I got to say about
No,
that.
that was perfect, Cam. And it sounds like it's your gift will make way for you, brother. Andrea, I'm gonna let you give us your headline of hope. What do you believe in the future or hope for what we're doing, what your work is?
I mean, I agree with everything that everyone else has said, Malik, Gabrielle, as well as Cam. I think, like, for me, you know, yes, I do want to see more journalists of color in our spaces, in newsrooms, as well as in the editor positions and inside of the leadership roles and things like that. But I also know that it's not going to be when you walk into the newsroom, you're not going to have every Black person. You're not going to see just tons of Black people writing and editing and being in leadership roles. So what I would like to see is more people that are in these leadership roles or that have these editor positions that are not Black. I want them to start understanding and start being a part, wanting to be a part of the community that they have or that they are working with at the time. You know, whether they are white, Hispanic, whatever the case may be, you know, I would like for them to actually want to understand and want to listen and want to be there for those Black reporters or editors or people of color that's working in those spaces. And then also, I know I always tell myself, you know, Andrea, if you don't tell the story, who else will? So I need to always make sure that I am showing up like we were saying earlier, you know, to tell these stories because, you know, sometimes people don't care about them. And if they don't care about them, then the world isn't going to care about it either. So I have to be the one to care about these stories because I care about my people.
For sure.
Amen.
Lauren? Sylvester?
Oh,
Ken has his hand up, I
Oh,
think.
Cam, I didn't see that. I'm sorry, Cam. What were you gonna say, sir?
I wanted to just ask Miss Andrea a question. She says she knows that she won't go into like newsrooms and see the Black editors, to see the Black producers or whomever. And I just think that, well, let me ask a question. Why not though? No, I mean, what's stopping that?
I mean, it's a lot of people that just not hired. They're not hiring them. And you know, and to be honest, I have a few friends that are actually getting out of the business because they just don't want to do it anymore. They want to do something else to be able to open up their expand their storytelling, or they don't want to work for somebody. They want to actually work for themselves or for their own company. So
Right.
it could possibly be one or two things. They just not hiring us, or if they are hiring us, it could be just for a short period of time because we need to fill this quota or something like that. But I really want, you know, to be honest, even if we are all together and it's not just like Black folks here and there, I just want them to be able to be like, you know what, I think that story is a great story. Let's run with it. Or tell me a little bit more so I can understand it a little bit more. And then I can give you the resources or the help you need to tell this story. And if we have people like that, allies in those newsrooms, we can get the stories done. It don't necessarily have to be Black people in there giving us these, I don't want to call it handout, or letting us do the things that we want to do, but it helps. It definitely helps.
I guess what I'm getting at.
Cam, I'm gonna go on and pass it forward. We're gonna have a part 2 if you like. I'm sorry, because we're now at we're after 8:30, and I want to be able to allow folks to answer and press on. But I'm glad you asked that one. That was a really great question to bring to the fore. Lauren.
Yes, I think what everybody said is great. So I don't have much to add to it, but maybe I would just say like voice for the next generation or something like that, because I feel like in order for us to continue to tell these great stories, we have to help others tell stories too. And I think you know, mentoring, having places and spaces for us to see each other, for young kids to know that journalism is a career that they can even choose to do. I think a lot of us don't know that, or don't see it as something that we can do, and that it's an option to tell stories in your own way. You don't have to work for anyone. You can build something from the ground up like Cam. You can do those things, but just to be able to feel like my voice matters. I think a lot of young kids need to know that. And if they knew that their voice mattered and they knew that they could tell stories, then, you know, they will want to take on that, you know, take on that next thing for us. And so just making sure that I'm passing the baton, you know, passing down information, and hopefully it continues on.
Thank you. Well, you know, Mr. Brown,
yes,
I
ma'am.
need you to give us the narrative.
I'll do
Give
my
us the Afro-futuristic, what might be possible if all things aligned and the devil got out the way. What would be your hope?
My
How
headline.
can it go?
My headline is inspired by Sam Cooke. Change is going to come, and it's already happening. Look at this panel right here. These young people. There's a kid out there who will see Malik, Gabrielle, Andrea, Cam, Lauren, and that kid will say, I can do that. And there's only one genre. If you look at technology, if you look at Hollywood and the streaming services, Netflix, Showtime, Amazon, you got Black folks now writing their own script, writing their own movies. That is huge influence. So going back to what I said earlier, we are exactly where we're supposed to be. We're in a very strategic and powerful position to influence what kids and young people and everybody sees, despite what white media tells us. I can do a story on these 4 5 people right now that will talk about your different challenges and hopes and aspirations in the genre that you work in. So to wrap it up, change is going to come, rest assured. We already doing it. We're where we're supposed to be. All we have to do is continue to seize the power and remember who we are. You know, the old Simba quote, I'm sorry, Lion King. Remember who you are.
And give me some more caviar. Give me some more caviar.
There you go.
That I am so grateful to have had this time and opportunity with you all. I hope we can revisit again. Know that we have plans to engage this even more. This is where the spark is and happens. Gabrielle Hayes, Malik Wilson, Cam Rhodes, Lauren Brown, Andrea Henderson, and Mr. Sylvester Brown. Thank you all.
It's a pleasure.
To our events team, thank you for hanging tough through it all, getting the monkeys out of the machine. And we look forward to sharing this with everyone going forward. Success in what you all do. Take good care of yourselves. Pour back into yourselves and know that I just love and adore you all very much. Thank you all.
Pleasure.